Oh yeah, what's up everybody? It's time to talk about the Doom Eternal soundtrack scandal. This is going to be fun, but also sad to cover, as so many industry stories tend to be. I'm a huge Doom fan, obviously, but I also used to be an audio engineer in another life, so hopefully maybe I can provide a few unique bits of insight on this, in addition to the other equally valuable perspectives I can offer as, obviously, the best video game critic on the planet. Now, despite many of the new juicy, scandalous tidbits regarding the story breaking over the last several weeks, I did want to hold off on covering it for just a bit for a few reasons. One, I didn't think the story had developed enough for me to really get a handle on it, and two, and probably most importantly, it's because I'm not a fucking journalist, nor do I intend to be. I'm an industry pundit or commentator, if you will. I don't have the time, inclination, or patience, frankly, to do the type of tedious fact-finding and verification work that is, or rather, used to be, the purview of professional journalists. I'm not good at it. I'm here to give you the TLDR about industry news and tell you what it actually means. Now, if you want to get into all the nitty-gritty of this, and there is a lot of it to get the fuck into, Yongya did a great, albeit lengthy, breakdown of all this. It's about an hour long, but I encourage you to watch it if you're really that interested. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get deep inside with Doom Eternal, shall we? First, let's cover the basics. What the fuck is going on? Well, it started back in 2020 in the absolutely fucking phenomenal work done by composer Mick Gordon on the music for Doom Eternal. The problems began, though, when the Doom Eternal OST was released and ended up kinda sounding like shit. Now, it should also be mentioned that an OST for a game is very much different from just the music that's in the game. Sure, technically they're the same tracks, but a lot more is done in production and arrangement for an OST versus music that's actually in a game, so just keep that in mind. So after a bit of a delay, the Doom Eternal OST was released, sounded like Garbo, and people were very quick to figure out exactly why. You can see here someone posted on Twitter a comparison of the waveforms from the in-game tracks and the actual soundtrack release. As you can see, the in-game tracks have a lot more variation in the wave versus the track on the right from the OST, which is clearly far more uniform. The reason this is a problem is because all that variation you see in the waveform on the left is what we engineers would call dynamics. This is where so much of the nuance and detail of your sound comes from. When you cut all that shit off, you're basically just crushing the sound, cutting off all the detail above the threshold. Even the most amateur engineer would recognize this as the classic rookie mistake known as brick walling. This is what happens when someone sloppily applies a limiter to max the overall volume of a track at the expense of pretty much all the dynamics. Essentially, what happens is that the quiet stuff gets loud, but the loud stuff, since it has nowhere else to go, stays at the same volume, thus ruining the subtle dynamics that used to exist. That's why any engineer worth a fuck would immediately recognize this as the amateur move it so obviously is. This is basically the difference between taking the time and money to properly remix and master a track and just slapping some boof shit on a raw wave and shoving it out the door. Frankly, I'm more than a little surprised that a corporation as big as id Software would employ someone who would try to get away with this kind of bootleg move. It's super amateur hour. But for whatever reason, that's exactly what id Software decided to do, and they put out a Doom Eternal OST that sounded Bush League. Now, I say for whatever reason, but I think we can all guess what that reason is. id Software likely figured they could save some money by having some hack fuck engineer in-house master the OST and tell Mick to go kick rocks. Now, as an audio engineer or composer, you're likely going to be billing by the hour for studio work or by the minute for in-game music, so this likely was a pretty hefty chunk of change that they were looking to save. This was largely confirmed when Mick Gordon later publicly clarified he was not involved with 48 out of the 59 tracks in the OST and that he would not be working with id Software again. Super huge bummer for all fans of Mick's work and the OST, but also for us Doom fans that loved his work with the Doom reboots and been hoping that there was going to be much more where that came from. Alas, it seems that would not be the case. So, you've got a banger of a game in Doom Eternal doing great numbers that's suddenly being dragged down by a PR disaster caused by a botched OST release, resulting in fans of both the game Doom Eternal and Mick Gordon justifiably furious. You're a huge AAA corpo. What do you do? Well, since it's 2022 and we live in hell, naturally what they did was send fuckboy extraordinaire and id Software executive producer Marty Stratton to Reddit, of all fucking places, to spread the blame all over everybody but the corporation and smear Mick Gordon specifically. All just to save a couple bucks, but hey, corpos are gonna corpo, am I right? And that's where we were at until recently, forced just to believe the id Software Corpo cover story posted by Marty Stratton on Reddit, that a mere breakdown in communication led to the eroding of a very successful partnership that, oops, just so happened to leave Mick Gordon's professional reputation in tatters, and id Software the company looking squeaky clean and daisy fresh. That is, until Mick Gordon, the man himself, just this month dropped a 14,000 word rebuttal to scumbag Marty Stratton's Reddit claims, which most importantly included the fucking receipts. I'm not gonna go over all that here, but suffice it to say, it is exceptionally thorough, and until further rebutted by id Software or Marty himself, or countered by additional receipts, it looks like this is the real deal. Mick's statement paints a picture of all the classic labor abuses you'd come to expect from a morally bankrupt orphan furnace like a AAA developer. That's part of what makes it so easy to believe. It's all here, folks. Everything from overly aggressive and unrealistic goals and content scheduling to lost work, unpaid work, large spans of time where Mick simply wasn't paid for his work at all, endless demands, gag orders, severe crunch, threats, gaslighting, misplaced blame, all the way up to and including just straight up bald-faced lies. Utterly devastating stuff, things that no employee, regardless of their station or employer, should ever have to deal with for any reason whatsoever. There is simply no excuse for shit like this. According to Mick himself, the public rebuttal and his recent comments are the result of him reaching a point in his career, almost entirely due to the actions of id Software and Marty Stratton specifically, where he believes he simply has no other option but to speak out and lay these specious claims to rest once and for all. There is also a lawsuit and an effort to reach a settlement that is apparently still ongoing, with Gordon commenting that he feels his recent statements are the necessary next step in seeing that satisfactorily resolved. And to that I say, good. I hope he gets everything he deserves and more. Fuck id Software and fuck Marty Stratton. I mean, I still want more awesome Doom games from them, but until then, fuck them. Now, as we begin to wrap up here, we should make a few things very clear. Truth, responsibility, justice, that kind of shit, not determined in the court of public opinion or on the goddamn internet, as much as many people may like to pretend or behave as though they are. We do have a judicial system here, corrupt and nigh useless as it may be, for a reason. And that is where stuff like this is ultimately adjudicated. And while it's tempting to believe baller Mick Gordon over shithouse Marty Stratton and corpo enabler id Software, we don't know anything for certain. So while I can probably guess who's telling the truth and who's not, and you can probably guess, and pretty much anybody with a functioning brain can also probably guess, we can't know for sure. So with that in mind, let's all make sure to remain open to different perspectives as further events and updates may warrant. That having been said, it is equally or maybe even more important to remember the primary lesson and takeaway from a story like this. And that is that this kind of treatment is not aberrant behavior, but standard behavior for corpos. It is not their last resort, it is their first choice. Sure, they can't be relied upon to create good games, but they absolutely can be relied upon to lie, cheat, steal, and smash the reputation of anyone, including their own employees, and keep them shut the fuck up with a gag order to make sure that no one ever knows just how badly they got fucked. And all the while, their universally adored work continues to shoulder the responsibility for earning the majority of their company's revenue. It's just textbook, folks, and that's fucking sad. Fuck Marty Stratton, fuck id Software, Mick Gordon, officially goated.
Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I'm back down. Back down. What? Woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I'm